Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jess with So Many Creations. Today's video is all about my new tourist tote bag add-on pattern. That is a mouthful, but it is totally worth it, I promise. So in the last video, which I will link above for you, we went over my very basic and one of my older patterns, the tourist tote bag. 8 pieces of fabric, fully interfaced, and that's it. I did this one all out of cotton, but as the years have gone on and we have been getting more into cork, a lot of bag makers have been adding cork to the handles, to the bottom, sometimes to the entire outside. And one of the things that I have always thought about with this pattern is that I wish I had added some pockets, some zippers, some different things. But at the time I was looking for a really easy beginner basic pattern, and I think I nailed it. But it's about time that we do some updates. So the tourist tote bag add-on is going to give you so many different features. This one right here has pretty much all of them. It's been tossed around a little bit today, so it just got a little squished. We're going to go over doing all cork on the outside, making a wider handle, adding rivets. There's a scoop outside pocket. There's also a straight pocket option. There's an adjustable handle. There's a recessed zipper, finally, and some cork strips on the top. Inside, we're going to do our basic divided pocket, which you'll see right here, just on this side. But I'm also giving you this fun, kind of freestanding zippered pocket, just something a little bit different. There's even a key fob option, and for fun, as a little bonus, there is a little bonus. It's the little tourist tote bag pattern. It's a little mini. Perfect for knitting or books, a child's bag. You could even use this as a lunch bag. I did this one really simple. I just added a couple pockets on the front and back. I added some piping because why not? And I left the inside pretty plain. In the next clip, we're gonna go through each of the samples I have and show you some of the different features. In the pattern, there's going to be 8 or 9, I'm sorry, I can't remember, different features, and you can use as many or as little as you want. There is also a cutting chart to use 2 different corks on the outside. So as you saw in my first sample, the plaid one, there is the plaid and then the wine color. It's going to give you all of the information for that. And I'm going to be using waterproof canvas throughout the pattern and also in today's video. I love using waterproof canvas because I don't have to interface it, and all of the cork samples that I'm going to show you have 0 interfacing. A couple things to keep in mind. As always, my patterns are domestic friendly, and you can make any of these bags with your standard domestic sewing machine. I have one myself, and that is what everything is tested on. For today's video, and for some of my more recent videos, I have been leaning more towards my Janome HD9. It is a heavy duty machine, so I don't have to give it a lot of thought when it comes to thick layers and seams. It also makes beautiful top stitching, and everything is so straight and precise. So that's the machine that I'm going to focus on today, but don't let that stop you from using your domestic. What you're going to need to do is just kind of keep an eye on your seams. You know your machine better than I do. When it comes to some of your pocket options or handles, you might want to make some adjustments, and I'll talk about that as well. So again, we are using cork and waterproof canvas, but you can adapt pretty much all of these techniques into cotton if you want to do cotton for these because that's your preferred fabric, or because that's what you want to use on your domestic. There's always an option. You just might have to make a few changes or do a little bit of math. I know that sounds scary, but I have given you many videos that you can kind of pick and choose from that will help you to go through some of these steps. So what I'm going to do is show you all of the bags that I've made so we can see some of the features. In today's video, I'm going to go through every single one of them. I'm going to give you everything from start to finish in the pattern, and then you get to pick and choose for yours what you would like to add. If you already have the tourist tote bag pattern, you are a step ahead. The new pattern does not include any construction or any sizes. You are going to want the add-on pattern in addition to. It is not a substitution. So if you already have the tourist tote bag pattern, you have all of those basics. You also have the video that I linked earlier that will show you how to make that very basic, simple tote. For the add-on pattern, it's not going to give you any of the previous sizes, so you're not purchasing two of the same pattern. You're going to get all of the additional pieces. So they're going to work in conjunction with each other. If you have neither of those, you can find a bundle right here on my website, or you can just find the add-on pattern by itself. If you need any of the hardware, supplies, cork, or anything else, you can also find that on my website. Everything I'm using has been pulled right from our shelves, with maybe one exception, and I'll let you know when we get there. I think today's lining fabric is actually from Mormino. It's the only thing I haven't cut yet, so I'm still deciding right now. But I'm gonna go through everything that you'll need, including your basic supplies, how you'll wanna set up your sewing machine, and all of that. We're gonna talk about lots of stuff in this video. It's gonna be jam-packed with so many tips and information. One thing to keep in mind with this tutorial and all of my others, if the pattern is not free, the sizes are not included. To show your support, you can head on over to my website and you can purchase the pattern. If you have the older tourist tote bag version, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. I have updated the cover and the font because, quite frankly, it was driving me crazy. If you want a revised version of the tourist tote bag pattern, just so it looks a little bit more consistent with the rest of your So Many Creations patterns, send me an email right here. Just show me that you already own the pattern. Don't send it through the contact form because you can't attach pictures. Just send me an email, send me a picture of your pattern or a picture of your receipt, whatever you have to prove that you have the pattern, and I will send a copy on over to you. I think that's everything. We are gonna have a lot of fun in this video. I'm so excited about the cork that I picked out for this next bag. I can't stop making these, and I wanna get this video done so I can use one of these bags. I'm gonna be traveling soon and I wanna take it with me. So if you like videos like this, don't forget to click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give it a thumbs up. All right, let's get into it. First up, let's go over some of the basics here so we can see the original pattern versus what you're going to do in this video with the elevated add-on pattern. So this is the basic bag. This is the one that I made in the previous video, the tourist tote bag beginner basic video. I did this out of quilter's cotton for the top as well as the lining, and a very lightweight denim, very similar to a quilter's cotton. It's really not any heavier than an Essex linen. It was something I had and I thought it looked kind of pretty here. These are some Tula Pink fabrics I don't sell on the website. I purchased them on Etsy. So this is the real basic bag. This is the one that if you have never ever made a bag before, this is the bag for you. So friendly to beginners. It's going to teach you how to box corners. It's going to talk about handles. It's also going to talk about the different styles of bags as far as your construction. So this one is what we call a turned style or a birthed bag. There are some other options for other bags. For something like this that's simple, I think doing a turn style is completely fine. We're going to do the same thing in today's video. So this one right here is what you're going to get in your basic tourist tote bag pattern. Now, what I've also done is I made another sample. I cannot remember if I showed this in the previous video or not. I think I did. But on this one, I used a canvas on top. I just kind of, bumped it up a little bit. I did make my handle a little bit wider like we're going to do in today's video. So this is 1.25 inches finished. The original is 1 inch. I added cork on the bottom. That is one of the very small updates to the new revised pattern, the tourist tote bag from 2011, if you believe it. This is one of the revisions. I just gave you the size of cork you would need to just do the bottom. That is really the only change. And if you've been making this bag, you have that information already. But again, I know you want to have the updated copy because it just looks nicer. So for this one, I didn't do a lot of changes. I used waterproof canvas, so I didn't have to interface that. I interfaced my canvas up here. I did not interface the cork. That's a personal preference. Many years ago, I always would. Now, I guess I do and I don't. It's kind of 50-50 for me. And usually the deciding factor is how ambitious am I feeling that day about cutting and fusing. So if I don't want to, I don't. And if I know that I'm making this for a gift or for something that's going to be kind of abused, I might put some fusible interfacing just to give the bottom a little bit more stiffness. So this is our basic pattern. For today, what we're gonna do is the add-on pattern. Let me grab some samples. So for the add-on, I guess the whole point of doing this add-on pattern was, number one, to work out all of the details, all of the sizes and the pieces that you would want to add. I get asked all the time about adding outside pockets and recessed zippered closures. Those are probably the two biggest requests for the tourist tote bag. And I would say probably the most popular comment on my kind of sneak preview videos. When I've been talking about this, a lot of people have been asking for those elements. But I didn't want to just add those and call it a pattern. I needed to make it a complete pattern. So this is also going to include how to cut 2 different colors of cork. I call one a print and one a solid. Obviously, you can do whatever you choose, but this is going to show you the best way to make use of your cork. This entire outside for the handles, the top, the bottom, and the recessed zipper, it's going to take 2 18 by 54s. I know that is a lot of cork. It's a lot of money to invest. But when it comes to bag making, if you are going to be making something that you want to look high end, that you're carrying or that you're making for a gift, sometimes you're going to make that choice and you're going to want something a little bit fancier than just cotton. You could obviously substitute the top in cotton, the bottom and the fixed handles in cork, mix and match, whatever you'd like to do. But I wanted to make sure you had cutting charts so that you could use your cork to the best of your ability and kind of make your decisions as you go. So on the outside, let's take a look at some of the features in the pattern. First, we're going to do a wider handle just because we can. There's really no other reason. The 1-inch handle is fine, but the 1 1/4, I don't know, it just kind of speaks to me and I really like it. So we're going to do a 1 1/4 handle. We're going to talk about doing a tri-fold because that is not the norm. That is not what I write into all of my patterns. It's in some of my newer ones, and it's definitely different from the handle that's in the original tote bag pattern. So this is going to give you the information on how to do a tri-fold. We're also going to talk about riveting. The rivets help with durability, but they're also decorative. I'll show you in the next sample how I just used 1 rivet on each side. We're going to do scoop pockets. We're also going to do straight pockets. These are between the handles. I have cork on the bottom, and I have I do have a recessed zipper, but this is an adjustable handle. So we're going to make a 1-inch wide adjustable handle. We're going to add some hardware because this bag has never had hardware. Again, totally optional how you want to do this. And if you're doing this, you might want to make these handles a little shorter. I'll show you how the next one looks so you can see what I mean. Those are kind of the upgrades for the outside. For the inside, we have a recessed zippered closure. We also have cork strips at the top, so it's going to make the entire top of the bag really durable. And this is where you're grabbing it and where it's rubbing on your coat or under your sweater. So I think having a little extra durability is a good thing. We're going to add our zipper in, and the recessed zipper for all of my bag patterns is typically cotton because it's usually made from your lining fabric. But today we're going to do something different. We're not going to go over the recessed zipper in cotton as we've done many, many times. I will link a video for you above that will show you how to do that. What we're going to do is cork on the outside and waterproof canvas on the back side. And what that means is we have raw edges because we can use both of these with raw edges. So that's going to be the difference. If you want to do it out of cotton, not a problem. We've done that many times before. And again, I'll link something for you. In the inside, I did forget to put my zipper end on this one. Shame on me. I'll get that done. We have divided pockets. I just put them on one side. And then we also have a hanging zippered pocket, something a little bit different that I haven't done before. I'm excited to show you this. You can also put this under your handles if you want. So you could make a zippered pocket for the outside as well. And then it could be a slip pocket. So kind of a double duty. We'll talk about that when we get into it. There's also a key fob option, which this one doesn't have. So let me grab one of the other samples and I'll show you how that looks. So this one right here, I did out of our January Cork Club selections. So many tongue twisters today. Again, I did a wider handle and I did the rivets. I have 2 scoop pockets on this one. I did the adjustable handle and I made my top handles much shorter. This is how I wrote it in the pattern. The plaid and wine colored one was kind of my first prototype. That's why not everything is precise. It was 90% of the way there, but I had to make some adjustments. So making a shorter handle just makes sense if you're going to add the adjustable handle. You don't really need both. I did on the inside, again, a recessed zippered closure, and I did finish this one. So there's a little zipper end. That's how I like to finish my zippers. This one also has this little hanging key fob or wallet clip, whatever you need to hook onto here that you don't want to lose in the bottom. So we'll just make a really simple little version of that. This one, I did no pockets inside. I just thought, I think I'm going to keep the inside on this one a little bit more simple because you can pick and choose any of the steps that you want to add. This add-on does not mean that you have to do every single thing. If you're looking at this and thinking, I won't ever use an adjustable handle, that's not my style, skip it. If you're thinking that you only want divided pockets, just do those. Anything that you want, it's possible. So the last sample here, this I did out of my February Cork Club, and this one I did 2 of these straight edge pockets, so I didn't use the template for the curves. I just put a rivet on either side of the top edge here, just for a little extra security, a little durability there. Again, I did shorten the top, or the fixed handles, and I made an adjustable handle. I think that's my favorite addition to this bag. The reason is I carry a Taurus tote bag right now. It is cotton with cork on the bottom, and it's actually holding up well. But because I put my laptop in it, and my laptop is big, it stands up. And sometimes the handles and the laptop are hard to get over my shoulder, especially if I have a coat on. So this right here, this is what I'm super looking forward to. On the inside of this one, I did this a little bit differently as well. So I did not do a recessed zipper, but I still added in my little cork strips right here because I could. Why not? And makes the top a little bit more structured. I have my freestanding zippered pocket here. I would like to note that this and the finished one that we're going to do in the video will slightly vary. There will be some tabs here just to make your zipper look neater. Again, as you're working through things, you make updates. So this will be updated just slightly. There are divided pockets on both sides and no key fob, no zippered top. And this one is good to go. So I did all of these with cork outside, waterproof canvas inside. Very exciting. I love how this came together. Not a single one of these has interfacing, and that's probably the best part. This one I also forgot to show you. I used a little bit of piping just for fun, just to add a little accent, and I just did it on the front. Again, it keeps it beginner friendly if you don't have to worry about matching those seams and figuring out how to do piping all the way around a bag. Jump in just a little bit. Get your feet wet until you decide what you like. So those are how the big bags look, but there's one more thing I didn't show you. There's another bonus in the back of your pattern, and it's for this right here. Is this not the cutest stinking thing you've ever seen? This is the little mini tote bag. Let me grab the full size. So this is my full size tote. There is my little mini. It's a little tiny baby tote. If you've been following me on social media, you may have seen in our Facebook group some little sneak previews, and this is what everyone has been showing you. A lot of the attendees at my virtual retreat were testing out some things for me, and they were making these. Somebody even made this into a purse because really it's a great purse size. You could add any of the options we're going to talk about in today's video. You'll just have to scale them down. But all of the measurements for these pieces are included in the back. I tell you what size to make your handles, how far apart to put them, what size corners, etc. So I just put 2 little pockets on the outside here, and I left the lining completely plain. This is not sold on my website. This is a water resistant canvas, kind of like waterproof canvas, except it doesn't have the rubber backing. This is from moremeknow.com. If you want to try something a little bit on the lighter side, it's going to be a little bit more domestic friendly. So we are not going to go over this bag, but you will have all the bonus measurements in the back of your pattern on the last page. There's also a template included to do your curves. So other than that, I think those are all of the things that we're going to talk about today. Next up, we're going to go through our supplies, and then we'll go through all the pieces that I already have cut. Let's go through all of our basic supplies for today. I have, of course, my ruler and my rotary cutter and mat. That is what I use to do all of my trimming. I have my box corner template, not a necessary tool, but it definitely helps out. These you can find on my website if you are interested in purchasing one. Otherwise, you can just use a ruler and rotary cutter. Of course, I have some scissors, various marking tools. It depends on what I'm going to be marking on. So I have my light color and then a darker color. I also have my stiletto and seam ripper combo because I'm probably going to need it at some point. If I sew without this nearby, I'm going to need it. But if I have it nearby, maybe I won't. I'm going to test that theory out. So those are some of my basics. I also have some pins. I doubt that I'm going to use these, but I like to keep them nearby. And I have my clips. As far as your other tools are concerned, tape, double stick tape is going to be really important. We're going to use this on the handles. We're also going to use this on some of the placement and on our recess zipper. So I'm using 1/8 inch. If you want to use quarter, that's fine. Whatever your preferred brand is. This is the 1/8 inch regular stick. It's not the hyper stick from Wawick.com. I'll put the website right down there for you. We're going to be using plenty of that. I also have my rivet setter and my hole punch. If you are not putting in rivets, you don't need these tools. So these are not something you have to have, but because I'm going to be adding rivets to my handles, I grabbed my handheld and I also grabbed my little OESD punch. I think for this particular bag, because of how the position of, or how the handles are positioned, this one is actually going to be the easier one to use. You can use whatever punch you have. If you have the dies for your rivet setter, you can do that as well. I do have my tabletop rivet setter, but again, because of how we're putting the rivets in, I think this one's a little bit easier to get into kind of like a tighter area. So I'll be using those a little bit later on. Now let's talk about our machines, because I am not using my domestic today, but I did grab some of my domestic threads, my favorite threads, feet, and needles. If you're using your domestic machine, what I like is a 9014 Microtex. That's my favorite needle. It's what I use on pretty much every bag. I just find that it helps to go through all the layers. It's a good size for cork and waterproof canvas. And my domestic, which is a Janome Skyline S9, really likes this needle. So I use this one a lot. I'm going to be using, or I would be using, excuse me, either my G or my S foot. Those are going to be for 1/8 inch stitching. The S foot is a stitch in the ditch foot. The G foot is a blind hem foot. I use those for 1/8 inch stitching. I move my needle position to the left. I also have my O foot, which is my 1/4 inch, and I might grab a zipper foot depending on kind of how my machine's feeling. Sometimes when I put in zippers, I use one of these. Sometimes I use a zipper foot. If I was sewing on my domestic, I would probably be using either my Aurifil cotton. This is the 40 weight. 40 is green. I can use 28 for some of my top stitching, but I probably wouldn't assemble the entire bag with it. So the 40 weight works really nicely. I also have some Gutermann Mara. This is Mara 70. So this is a polyester thread, but it looks and feels like cotton. So I really like that one. This works really nicely in the top and bobbin on my domestic. I am going to be using my HG9. So for today, I'm going to put those aside. I am kind of debating because I can't decide which one I like better. I am either going to be using the Saya Swag Tex 45. This is like a pretty aqua color. Or I'm going to be using the Wizardry Stitches Tex 45. This one is Unicorn Mane, and it's a gorgeous rainbow. Does rainbow go with everything? I think so, but I haven't decided. I think I'm leaning towards this one, but I'm going to play around before I get my machine threaded. Since I'm using a heavy duty machine, I will use this in the top and the bobbin. All right, so that is all of the basic supplies. Let's look at some of the hardware that we're going to use. So I am going to be adding the adjustable removable handle. So I grabbed a slide set. I'm really only going to need the slide. I actually don't need the rectangle. I grabbed some D-rings and I grabbed a set of swivel hooks. These are all 1 inch, and you can actually use the Margie hardware kit on my website if you prefer. It comes with all of these pieces minus the rectangle, which is what we need. I was just grabbing these off the shelves, so I'm gonna go with that and I'll just put the rectangle back. I grabbed a handmade tag. I have been trying to put those on everything, but I do forget. But since that is very important for a lot of you, we'll talk about when a good time to add that will be. The washer is somewhere. I'll get that when I need it. I also grabbed a pack of rivets. This is a set of 20, and I am probably going to use all of them. If I use 5 per handle, that's going to end up being 20 total. So I have those, and again, I have my rivet tool, and I have the die in it and the punch. Other than that, I think we're ready to just get into the individual pieces and start making our Taurus tote bag with every add-on you can imagine. On page 1 of your add-on pattern, it's going to give you 4 lettered pieces. The sizes are not included, but the letters are there from the original pattern. If you have one of the older copies of the Tourist Tote Bag pattern, again, nothing has really changed there. I updated the font and the cover, and I gave all of the pieces letters. That is something I did not do when I wrote that pattern, but it's something I do now. So again, you need the original pattern for the measurements and the construction, but I did give you the letters so that you know which pieces we're referencing. All of the pieces in the pattern do have letters. You will find that the first 4, A, B, C, and D, are from the standard pattern, and anything from E forward is going to be for your add-ons. You can pick and choose whichever ones you would like. If you do choose to do all cork on the outside, you will have enough to do every single add-on using 2 18 by 54s. So I used a full sheet of the print and a full sheet of the solid. On page 2 of your pattern, it's going to show you how to cut that and how to make the best use of your cork. It has taken into account that we have some directional prints. Directional prints are totally fine for this bag. Sometimes they can be tricky, but for this one, it's totally fine. As you can see, this print that I have right here is actually directional. If you choose to skip any of these and you want to see if you can save a little bit of cork, if you're just not doing the add-on, or if you were on a sub-it in a different fabric like cotton, etc., go ahead and sketch out your pieces. I will tell you that is the best tip that I can give you. I get a lot of emails of people asking, like, how big of a piece do I need? Because yardage for fabric and yardage for cork are not the same. We sell cork in sizes. We sell fabric in yardage. So what I do and what I would tell anybody else to do, just sketch it out. Just draw yourself a rectangle and write your sizes and then put your different pieces. Just keep in mind which way your direction goes. So I've already done that for you. Again, skip anything you don't want. Today, we're doing it all. So all of my pieces here for the outsider cork, my inside is going to be water resistant canvas. This is not something that I have used for a larger project. I used it for the little mini version. So it's what's on the inside here. I purchased the water resistant canvas from mormino.com. I have not used it on a large project, and it's lighter than waterproof canvas that we sell. The waterproof canvas has a rubber backing because it's an outside fabric. It's for outdoor furniture. When using this, I don't know how I'm going to feel at the end, if it's given me the structure that I want. So I will check in with you at the end of the video and let you know how I feel, if I want to add interfacing or not. I might even jump in right here and just kind of give you a little bit of a note to let you know how I felt at the end. All right, so let's go through all of our pieces here. I've got them all cut and labeled and ready to go. So my first 2 pieces are my A pieces. These are for the outside top. Your measurement is found in the original pattern. I have both of those cut, one for the front and one for the back. I have my 2 B pieces. B is going to be cut from the solid cork, so I have a navy blue here. This I cut as per the pattern. I did not make any changes, and I didn't interface any of the cork. There will be 0 interfacing in this entire bag. My C pieces, we're going to talk about these for just a quick second. My C pieces, I've already cut as per the pattern, and I cut out my corners. You can do that towards the end, but I wanted to do that so I could show you something else that we're going to discuss in length. These, again, are out of the water resistant canvas, no interfacing. We'll see how that goes. So you'll see here that there's 2 little strips. These are going to be the little strips that normally we would save so that we can add a recessed zipper, because any of my patterns with a recessed zippered closure, the recessed zipper is in between these 2 pieces of the lining. It's sandwiched in. For today, I'm not going to use these. So I trimmed the height of my pieces 1.5 inches less than I did in the original pattern. And that is noted in your add-on pattern. The reason is I'm going to take these, get rid of them, and sub them with cork. That piece is down towards the bottom. But just so you know, normally we would trim those strips and keep them. We're going to trim them and substitute them. So we're still keeping them, just in a different fabric. So I've got my C's. You can see there's my corners, and I trimmed the strips from the top. I'm going to set those over here. We're bouncing back and forth a little bit between the cork and the lining fabric. And just keep in mind, if you're using cotton for lining, you're going to want to interface those larger pieces. For piece E, we're going right into E because, we'll get there in just a second, we skipped our handles because we're gonna do them a little different. For piece E, you have the opportunity to make two pockets. So for each pocket, you're going to need 2 squares. You're going to cut them out of whatever you would like. I cut my 4 pieces out of cork. To reduce bulk or save a little cork, you can cut one of each sets out of cotton, out of waterproof canvas, out of whatever you would like, because it's gonna be the back side. So when we look at this pocket, and I'm just gonna grab the small one. When we look at this pocket in the finish bag, we have cork facing out. And on this one, again, I have cork inside, but if I wanna save that, I could substitute that inside piece with cotton or whatever I want. So if I'm using cotton, I also would choose not to interface it. I don't think it's an important or large enough piece that needs interfacing. I have 2 cork squares and I have 2 cork right here that are going to get the curved top. So you can do either or, you can do the same, mix them up, whatever you'd like. I'm going to keep this one with a straight edge and I'm going to keep this one with the curved edge. I already trimmed one and we'll talk about that when we get into our pocket. This one needs to be trimmed. This template can be found on the last page of your add-on pattern, but here is a little note. This curve, it's insignificant. If you lose this piece, it doesn't matter. You can use any curve. You can grab a dinner plate if you want to. You can do whatever you would like because this curve is just adding a little bit of interest. It doesn't matter if it's a little deeper or shallow. It won't make any difference. So I have 2 pockets cut out, which means I have 4 total pieces. If you're subbing cotton for any of these pieces, you don't have to make any changes. I would just interface the 2 or the piece that faces forward, not the piece in the back. When we get into the pockets, I'll explain a little bit further, so hopefully that all makes sense. Now we're gonna jump back because I said that we had skipped piece D. Piece D in your original pattern is going to be your handles. We are subbing D for F. So I have 2 F pieces. These are not cut to the full width. The reason is, as I showed you in the samples earlier, if I'm doing an adjustable handle and the fixed handles, I want my fixed handles a little bit shorter. So in your cutting chart, it's gonna show you the sizes for this. These are a little bit on the wider side because we're gonna do a trifold handle. So I've got these all cut, 2 of those, so no D's, sub for F. My G is going to be right here as well as my H. And this is a long strip. This is going to be for my adjustable removable handle. And H is going to be my 2 tab pieces. I cut those out of cork, got those all ready to go. I is going to be for my key fob. I'm just realizing I forgot one crucial piece of hardware. I don't have a swivel hook for this. So before we get any further, I will grab my swivel hook. I need a rose gold 1/2 inch so that I can make my little key fob. For J, I have my large piece and I have 2 little pieces right here. This is going to be for my inside free hanging pocket. I could also put this between the handles and I might skip ahead and just try that out just to see how it looks. I keep wanting to do it and forgetting. So this is going to be for the inside, but I might test it a little bit. I will need to grab a zipper for this. I didn't worry about that just yet. I have my 2 pieces for divided pockets. I'm going to do 2. I might change my mind and do 1. It all depends, but I have them both cut out. These are K. These are going to be out of the water resistant canvas, and I'm going to show you my little trick when I'm using something that doesn't fray. So I will not be going over the standard divided pockets as I've done in several patterns. I'm going to show you a little shortcut that I use to do the non-fraying type of pockets. All right, we're almost at the end here. We have our 4 pieces for our recess zipper. These are going to be, you would think I would remember, L. So our L pieces, we have 2 cork for the top. We have 2 water resistant or waterproof canvas for the bottom. Again, we're gonna do this a little different. There's not gonna be finished edges on this. We can use all of these materials raw edge. And again, I'll need to grab a zipper when we get there. And last but not least are my M pieces. These are replacing those skinny little strips right here that I tossed away. So I cut those off of the lining. I'm going to substitute them with this. So my recess zipper will be between this and the larger bottom piece that has pockets. So I've got all my pieces prepped. We're gonna get cleaned up a little bit here because I made myself a mess. I'm gonna get my machine set up and decide on my thread color, grab that last piece of hardware and some zippers, and then we're gonna jump right into step 2. Step 1 was cutting everything all out of cork, and we've already done that. So we're gonna start with all of the outside add-ons, and then we will move into our lining and the assembly. So for the first add-on, number 2, that is gonna be for these outside pockets. These need to be created and added before your fixed handles are on. One thing to keep in mind with this pattern, because we are not working start to finish through the bag, like I would normally say, we're gonna start here and end with a finished bag, because we're kind of picking and choosing, I did my best to add things in the most logical order possible. So we're starting with something that has to go under something else. We're ending with the recess zipper assembly. So I tried to make this as sensible as I could, as logical as possible. There may be some areas where it seems a little bit off because we skip around. There's only so much that I can do. So definitely read your pattern carefully and also pay attention to the steps in the video. All of the timestamps are in the information section, so you can skip anything that you don't need. So back to pockets. You have 2 different options for these pockets. They're both going to be assembled the same, and this is going to be something that you can sub cotton or anything else. Fraying is not going to be an issue because our top edge is finished, our bottom edges are raw, and those are going to be inseams or under handles. So you can use cotton for these with no changes. Again, I would just interface this piece. I could skip the interfacing back here, especially if I was using cork as my main A pieces. You could interface both. It's up to you. It's up to the structure that you want. I mean, it's just an outside pocket. I would say don't overthink it. But also it depends on your machine. So for today, because I'm using the heavy duty machine, I'm going in with all cork. So I have right here my 2 squares cut. I did not do anything to these edges. I'm gonna keep them straight. So those are going to look like this one. I'm gonna do 1 pocket that's straight and 1 pocket with a curve. So I've got 2 of these pieces. No matter what I'm doing, I need 2 pieces, 1 for the front, 1 for the back. I'm gonna take these pieces and put them right sides together, paying attention to my direction. This is my top edge, and that's the only place I'm sewing. So I'm gonna put them right sides together, add a couple clips because it reminds me when I get to the machine where I'm sewing. And just like so, there we go. I am going to sew this at the machine, 1/4 of an inch all the way across here, making sure to backstitch, turn my pieces right side out. The sides and the bottom are not going to be sewn. I'm going to top stitch up here, and that's going to be it. So that's pocket number 1. For this pocket, I'm going to use the template that came in the pattern. And I can use my ruler and rotary cutter, but for today, I'm just going to use scissors. I've already got 1 cut, so let me show you how to mark that. You can mark on the front or the back. It doesn't matter. Make sure, again, you pay attention to direction. And what I do is I'm just gonna lay this down. This dotted edge should essentially be at the top. The reason that the template is larger than it needs to be is because this little sliver would get so easily lost. Again, if you do lose it, it's not a problem. Reprint it or use a dinner plate or something circular. It does not make a difference. This is one of those things we don't need to overthink. So I'm just lining it up. The dotted edge is at the top, and I just ran my pen around, marked it, and now I'm just gonna use my scissors and cut. Cut right on that line. It doesn't even matter if it's perfect or if it aligns with the other one perfectly, because once we sew it and turn it right side out, nobody's gonna know. So I'm gonna take these 2 pieces, also right sides together, just like this. How'd we do? Oh, they lined up pretty good. All right. And I'm just gonna add a couple clips. I'm gonna do the same thing. So 1/4 of an inch across just the top edge, backstitch when I start and stop, turn it right side out, press if I need to. I'll probably just finger press and top stitch up here. I like to top stitch 1/8 of an inch. Seam allowance is 1/4, top stitching is 1/8. My pockets are all set. I did grab a lighter since I'm using polyester thread just to burn my ends. I've got my straight edge pocket and then I've got my curved pocket. They're both gonna work exactly the same, just a preference in the shape that you like. So I did put my clips back just so I would bring them back with me. But this is how the pocket looks. I have a finished and top stitched top edge. It's still open. I've got my raw edges here, and those are gonna go under the handles and into the seam, so I don't have to worry about those. In order to add these on to my bag, I need my top pieces, which are piece A, but I also need my handles. So in the end of this step, it's going to show you how to add these to your bag, but we haven't prepped our handles yet. So we're gonna go on to step 3, get our handles ready, and then we'll backtrack a little bit and add these on. As long as your pockets are added before your handles are sewn on, you're good to go. So again, because I didn't know what steps you were going to do and in what order, I kind of had to jump around a little bit. So we're gonna just set these aside. I'm not gonna grab my A pieces just yet. I am gonna go ahead and grab my F pieces. Again, those are replacing the D handles. So before we add our pockets on, we're gonna skip ahead to step 3 and prepare our fixed handles. In the original pattern, the handles finish at 1 inch. For this pattern, I'm actually going to do them at 1¼ inch. Just makes them a little tiny bit wider, not anything too crazy. And I just kind of like that look, especially with all the cork. It just seems more, I don't know, kind of beefy, but in a good way. Is that a thing? So you can use whichever width you like. And if you want to do cotton handles, there is yardage requirements and the measurements included in the pattern on step 3. But for today, we're going to use cork. And we're going to do a trifold handle. If you've done some of my more recent patterns, you might have already done this. If not, or if you need a refresher, here's what we're gonna do. So you're going to take your cork strip and turn it over so it's wrong side up. I know it's hard to tell because I have navy and the back is black, but just bear with me. This is the wrong side. So what I've started with is I used my ruler and chalk pencil and I made a line 1¼ inches from one of these long edges. Your first line, your only line, is going to be wherever the finished width is. So if our finished width of this trifold handle was 1 inch, we would draw a line 1 inch over. So it's 1/3 of your measurement or the finished size of the handle. So I drew my 1¼ inch line. So I drew that from this edge right here. So on this side, on the opposite side, I'm gonna add some tape. This is going to help me to prepare this. So I'm just gonna run my tape not quite on the edge, but close enough to it. And again, does not need to be perfect. You can very easily do a double fold if you wanna save a little bit of bulk for your domestic machine. I love a trifold handle. I just think that it has a really nice feel to it, but you can very easily just double the width. So if it's 1¼ inch, it would be 2½ inches. Just double the width and fold it in half or fold it in towards the center. So now that I have my tape here, I'm gonna take my paper off. Sometimes that's easier said than done. Oh, there we go. All right. And I'm gonna fold this edge right to the line. And the tape is strong, but it's not gonna hold forever. It's just kind of getting us started. So just fold it to that line, like so. Just keep pressing. And for the opposite side, you can add more tape if you want to, or you can just use some clips, and that's what I'm gonna do. So either put tape on this edge or grab your clips, and you're gonna fold this raw edge almost all the way to the fold. It's like a hair off. And the reason is I don't want this edge, this raw edge kind of hanging off. I kind of want to make a back so that from the front, it looks like I have just 2 clean edges and you don't even know that that little bit is back there. So we're just going to fold that, keep clipping. And once this is done, it's going to look like this one. So I have both of them ready. I have cut them to the shorter, more purse length handle. I'm not doing the full width of cork. So this is gonna be shorter. It's gonna be just like the one that we have here, not the first one. So now that I have this ready, I'm gonna finish this one up, head over to my machine and do the top stitching that I want. You can choose whatever you would like to do. My preference, as you probably picked up, is 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch on both sides. That's just my look. It's kind of what I do in pretty much every video. So if you've been here for a while, you've seen it. I'm gonna get these top stitched, and then when I come back, we'll grab our A pieces and put this all together. So we have our pocket from step 2, our A piece, and one of our handles. My handle is all top stitched and ready to go. So that's how it's looking. I actually just did 1/8 of an inch from each edge. I decided to skip the quarter. I'm living life on the wild side here. Normally I would do both, but I decided, you know what? Today I'm just gonna try a little bit, see if I like it. So far, so good. So I've got my pieces all ready. So the first thing that I'm going to do is place my pocket on my A piece. And in order to do that, I needed to find the center of both. So at the bottom here, I made a mark with a removable pen, and I also did the same thing for my pocket. On the back, I just added a little piece of tape. Not necessary, you could definitely just use clips, but I'm gonna use a little bit of double stick tape. And I'm gonna align my 2 center marks and the bottom edges. So now I've got my pocket down here. Here's my top finished edge facing up, again, paying attention to my directional cork. So I've got that in place. And what I did before we came back off camera was I also measured out my dimension that I need for my handle. So I made sure that I drew a mark on each side with removable pen. I used my friction pen so I could just heat erase it when it's all done. And the reason I did that is because it's going to help keep my handle straight, and I don't want to pin my cork. You can, but I really wouldn't recommend doing it too much. So instead of trying to pin or only clipping at the top and the bottom, I made my marks so I can keep everything straight. But what I also did is add some tape onto the back of my handle. So I added it onto the bottom. I did take into account that I'm not sewing the handle all the way to the top. I'm only sewing it about 2 inches from the top. So I just added some shorter strips of tape. And now what I'm gonna do, since I have all of my things lined up and ready, is take my paper off. All right, oh, come on. I'll try the other end. I just rub it with my fingernail and then it usually comes off. Take my paper off on this side as well. And the tape, again, not necessary because we drew the lines. You can just use some clips, but I figure between the lines and the tape, nothing's gonna shift so I can get over to my machine and do my stitching. So I'm just gonna take my handle, I'm taking the raw edge, and the back, or what I'm calling the back, is where that other raw edge is. That was the one that we folded almost to the folded edge. I'm gonna place it right down here using my guidelines. Press it all the way up. All right. Make sure my handle is not twisted, very important. Line up this raw edge. Okay. And press that all the way in place. And now I don't need a single clip. So a couple things just to note. I am going to be sewing through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers of cork. At my thickest part right here, it's going to be 6 layers thick. Out here, it's going to be 4, 3 on the handle, 1 on the base part. So just be really careful again with your domestic and check and make sure that you're not pushing it and it's not going to be too much cork. You can always make your cork handles a double fold. That will eliminate a little bit of cork. You can also, again, put on the back side of your pocket some cotton or something a little bit lighter. So now that I have this all set, the last thing that I need to do is mark down 2 inches from the top. And I did that already with my other piece. This has the straight edge pocket. So I just marked down my 2 inches. And just like in the pattern, I'm gonna follow my 1/8 inch sewing all the way up, reinforce it a few times here and come back down. I'll do that on both sets of handles. When I'm done, then I will be ready to add rivets. Even though I'm adding rivets, I still like to sew. And I believe that rivets are gonna be our next step. So I will see you in just a minute. My handles are stitched in place. My pockets are held down. One thing to note, and this is kind of a personal preference, I did not sew all the way across this bottom edge. Like this is still open right here. There's going to be a bottom piece that goes on and covers all that. You can sew across the bottom as long as it's less than 1/4. It doesn't make any difference either way. I don't think you can overstitch. I guess you might beg to differ if you're taking stitching out. But other than that, I don't think that it matters if you do or don't stitch across here. I just didn't happen to. So now that I have these pieces done, I'm gonna decide which one is gonna be my front And I'm gonna add my handmade tag. This is a great time to add that if you're doing it up here. If you wanna put it on the bottom part, you'll wait until the bottom pieces are sewn on. I'm thinking that I wanna use the curved side. So I'm just gonna move this one over. In the meantime, I also grabbed my rivets and my rivet tools, including my rivet guide. And as far as this tag is concerned, I am just eyeballing it. I'm sorry if that makes you cringe. I just don't feel like measuring. So I'm measuring with my heart. And I think that looks pretty good. If I live to regret it, it's my bag. I think this is the one that I'm gonna carry, so it's okay. I'm just gonna mark. I'm going to grab some scissors because I don't know where my seam ripper is. Oh, here's one. I would much rather use a seam ripper. So take my seam ripper, pop in and back out, in and back out. This is not weight bearing, so I am not going to reinforce it. I'm just gonna put it right in, put my washer on and call it a day. I think that looks pretty good. I'm happy with the rose gold hardware. Normally I would do rainbow because I have rainbow thread and a lot of colors going on, but I decided I would do rose gold. And I pushed my prongs outward, which I never do. I am just a whole new person in this video. So we'll see. I usually push them in, I push them out. Does it matter? Probably not. Some of you will probably argue about that in the comments, and I don't know why, but I think out worked just fine this time. So that is how it's looking. Looks nice and straight. So I am ready to add rivets. If you don't want to add rivets, go ahead and skip on to the next step. This is going to be the final part of this particular step. I have my rivet guide, and I also need my chalk pencil. So what I'm gonna do is 5 on each side. It is a little excessive, I know. It's going to add some nice structure, but it's also just gonna look really cool. Again, you can add 1 or 2, you can add 0. It's totally up to you. You do what you want on your bag. So I have an 1.5 inch handle on this side, and this is 1.25 inches. So if I am remembering correctly from when I did it at home, I can line up my top stitching line on my, the inside, let's see, the inside dotted line. And let me hold this up so you can see. I'm fumbling on my words today. So I lined up my 1/8 inch top stitching with this top stitching right here, and it lines up really nicely. Technically, that would be the edge of the handle, but in this case, it's a little bit narrower, and I'm gonna use that. And I think what I did, let's see here. Did I start at the top? I might have started at the top. Let me have a little conversation with myself for a minute. All right, so I made a decision. I am going to start at the top edge of my guide, line that up at my stitching across here, and I'm gonna mark 1, skip 2, 2, skip 2, 3, and then just slide this down. 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, and 5. Okay, let me try to darken these up so you can see them. I'm gonna do the same thing on all the handles. I'm just gonna show you how to do this one so you don't have to watch me put in 20 rivets. So what I did is I lined up the top edge of my guide at the stitching that goes horizontally here. I measured down, let's see here. I used my first hole right there, skip 2, did the third, skip 2, did the third, and that gives me 5. I'm gonna do the same thing here and the same thing here. So I'm probably just gonna speed it up, and then all of a sudden, like magic, it'll be done. All right, so I'm just gonna stop there. I will do the other one off camera. I'm just gonna start with this one. I wanted to make sure that everything was nice and lined up. Now that I have that done, I'm going to use my little punch right here. I am gonna grab a mat to put underneath here. I don't wanna damage my table. So this tool has its own little mat set. It is the tiniest thing I've ever seen, but it's adorable. I'm gonna put that under here. And I have my 2.5 millimeter hole that's already in here. This has other sizes under here. This one's way too small and that one is too big. The rivets would pop through. So I'm just gonna go ahead, and what I love about this is that I can just push like so. Sometimes because there's a lot of layers and because my arms are kind of extended because of the camera, I'll do it twice. I can see the mat through, so I know I got that one. And let's move on and do the rest. All right, all the holes are punched and falling all over the place. I will clean that up afterwards. One of the things that I always have working against me is that I have to extend my arms sometimes to get under the camera, and it's not always easy when you can't put your full body weight. So I did most of my holes twice. It's not the product, it's actually the way that I'm standing. But once I get those all through, now I'm gonna grab my rivets, and it doesn't matter where I start, but I'm just gonna pop one in right here. I put the post through. I'm gonna trim that thread while I'm here too. There we go. And I'm gonna take my back, my little cap, and normally I would just pop that right on with my thumb. But doing so many of these, that ends up kind of hurting my thumb after a while. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of set that on there. And I'm gonna take a pair of pliers or anything that has a flat surface, and I'm just gonna put it on here and push it like that. Now my rivet is snapped together. And do the same thing, come back here, put a cap on, at least get it started, and it's snapped on. Now they're ready to go through the press. So let me finish up this row. And I'm not damaging or scratching the rivets if you're thinking that I am. It's actually not really doing anything to them except just getting them started and snapped together. That is just so much easier. So there's a little tip for you. So now that those are all in place, I'm gonna grab my rivet setter. And what I'm gonna do is just kind of roll this up so I can get it out of the way. All right. Make sure that both the top and the bottom are lined up before I press. Otherwise, I'm gonna get one of those weird little divots, and I don't want that. And when you press your rivet, just press it until it kind of crunches together. You don't have to keep pressing until it won't go anymore, because that's when you can get marks. So you just kind of want to be careful. Just line it up. It should be in both of the discs, not hanging over on an edge, because that's when you get that little crescent moon shape. And you don't want that. We want our rivets to look good. If anything doesn't look good, if it's on the back, I don't really care. But if it's on the front, I care. So there is that part. Now I just have to do 5 over here, and then when I'm done, it will look like this. So I'm gonna finish up my rivets, and then we will come back and start working on an adjustable handle. Add-on number 4 is going to be an adjustable handle. So I have already gone ahead and top stitched mine because we're gonna make it the same way that we did our wider fixed handles. So this strip is going to be cut 3 inches wide. It's a 1 inch finished handle. So that means for the trifold, I just marked 1 inch from one of the edges, folded the opposite edge over, and then folded that one, used tape and clips. If you want to do this as a double fold, you'll just cut your handle 2 inches wide. So I have that already. I have not added any hardware. I also have my little tabs here. So this is piece G and these are H's. And for the tabs, I just cut them at 2 inches wide. I felt that it would help to reduce some bulk because when this goes into a seam, it's going to be folded in half. If I put 4 layers, or excuse me, this is 4 layers, it would be 6 layers if I did it as the trifold. And for the tabs, I didn't really think it made a huge difference. So I just folded my pieces in half and went ahead and did my stitching from either side. If you prefer to mark the middle and fold your edges in so that you have two clean edges, you can do that as well. So once we have these pieces ready, we're gonna go ahead and add our hardware. For the tabs, we're gonna add one of the D-rings. So I'm just gonna put that through and fold this in half. I'll add a clip here. I'm gonna sew 1/8 of an inch down at these raw edges, and then I'm gonna sew as close to the D-ring as I can to help prevent it from flipping. On this one, I actually just added a rivet, which I'm gonna skip for this one. I just did that because I was at home and had some extra rivets. So I'm gonna do the same on both of these, and I'm just gonna stitch them. Again, add my D-ring, fold in half. If you want to reduce a little bit more bulk, you can actually pull this edge back a little bit so you kind of have a gap here. This will get sewn into the seam and this will be out. I know that I can go through these layers, so I'm not gonna worry about it. So I've got my D-rings ready to sew. For my handle, I'm gonna take one of my ends here with my slide. I'm going to put my handle up and over the center bar, just like so. Hold on. Bring that down roughly 1 inch. I don't measure. That's about as far as it's gonna go. At the machine, I will sew that. So there, it is all sewn, just for demo. I'm gonna take my piece and fold it in half. Make sure it's not twisted. Take one of my swivels and I'm gonna put it facing outward, like so. That one is gonna stay loose, so I'll just move it down here. Take this opposite end and it's gonna come back up and over where I already sewed. Now I am using a tri-fold handle and a regular slide. It is snug, but it will still work. And for me, I don't mind that this doesn't move super easily because that means once I adjust my bag, I don't have to worry about it slipping around. If you need a wide mouth slide, you can use one of those. This is just the standard size that I use on the website. I'm gonna take my other hook, and again, my slide is facing up, my hook is gonna face up, and I'm just gonna fold this end under and give it a stitch. That's probably about 1 inch from the hook. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these all stitched, and then we will add them to the bag. Let's take a look at our hardware. The handle, which is removable, we don't need to do anything with. Once the hardware is on, we can set it aside. I added my swivel hook and I'm stitched about 1 inch or so down right along that raw edge. Same thing back here. You can see that I stitched my slide in place. My other swivel hook is loose. This is not twisted. Everything is good to go. So that is how my handle looks. I'm gonna set this aside. I don't need it until the bag is done. And then I have my 2 tabs, and I grabbed one of my outside pieces. I grabbed the front, but it really doesn't matter because they're gonna be in the side seam. So you can grab the back, it doesn't make a difference. So I've got my 2 tabs. I stitched 1/8 of an inch from the folded edge and as close as I could get because I don't want my D-ring to be moving around. Now I'm ready to stitch these in place. So I'm gonna place them with my raw edge kind of facing down, like that. My D-rings are facing inward and the short raw edges are right along the edge of the bag. I'm just kind of eyeballing these, but they need to be about 1 inch from the top. That will give you plenty of room to do your finishing. And now I'm just going to stitch those in place right over that sewing I already did, 1/8 of an inch, just a couple times to kind of lock that in. My D-ring tabs are all sewn in, so now it's time to finish up the outside of the bag. In my original pattern, I have already done steps 1, 2, and 3. Step 4 is going to be adding the outside bottom, and step 5 is cutting the corners. So you're just going to take your pieces as it shows, right sides together, stitch your 1/4 inch, and then go ahead and top stitch. So I have already done that on this one. I also went ahead and cut my corners. I did an 1/8 inch top stitching. I had a 1/4 of an inch seam. And one of the things that I note in the original pattern, because again, remember we were working with cotton a lot, I try to push one of my seams down and one up so that they nest at the end. When you're using all cork, when you have pockets right here and thicker handles, your bag doesn't want to do that. Your seam wants to go down. So I just let it go where it wants and I worry about it towards the end. When I'm putting everything together, I just do the best I can to align this. So I'm going to fess up right now and tell you something that I just found out. I cut my pieces incorrectly. The only thing I cut incorrectly, let me just rephrase that, was my width. What I did not realize is that my top piece was cut 2 inches narrower than it was supposed to. The pattern measurement was not followed because I went rogue for some reason. So when I went to put the bottom on, I wasn't sure why the bottom was so much longer. To my dismay, it was because I cut the top wrong. So instead of redoing all of this work that I've spent all morning doing, or adding pieces right here, which I could add some pieces and have some seams right here, totally understandable. I just trimmed the bottom pieces down. I'm using the same corner measurement. I'm using everything else exactly the same. My piece is just 2 inches narrower than yours is, and we'll see how it looks at the end. I'll be able to compare this to one of the other bags, which is the correct size. But I made a mistake and I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to leave it as is. Like I said, there were other options I could have entertained, but I decided let's just see what happens when the bag is 2 inches shorter this way and everything else is the same. So we'll see what the results are when the end is here. In the meantime, I'm going to go finish up my front. I'm going to sew this bottom on, get my top stitching done, and then we're going to start working on all of the lining add-ons. I finished up the outside of my bag, and before we move on to the lining add-ons, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the assembly. If you have one of the original Taurus tote bag patterns, one that was written prior to mid or early 2024, one of the original copies with the older cover and the smaller font, I had you assemble your bag a little bit differently because that's how I assembled bags back then. I had you sewing your outside and your lining together and essentially making a very large component that after you box your corners, then you just kind of turned all together. In recent patterns, pretty much anything after 2012, 2013, I started doing my birthed or turnstile bags a little bit differently. Always the same technique, just a little bit different way of getting there. So now what I like to do, and if you've done any of my patterns recently, any of the videos I have on YouTube, this will be familiar. Now I make an outside and I make a lining and then I combine those together. I did revise the Taurus tote bag pattern to be made that way. If you've done bags like that, you already know how to. If you have an older copy and you want the revised copy, again, just send me proof of purchase and I will get that to you. If you're buying it brand new right now, you're not going to have any issues. This is exactly how it says. So as of right now, we are completely done with add-ons all the way through 4. So we've done add-ons 1 through 4. And from the original pattern, we are now up to step 6 completed. So in the original pattern, the next part is going to be talking about assembling the lining. For us, we're going to work on the lining add-ons. So before we get into any of the lining add-ons, which are going to be the key fob, the pockets, the divided and zippered pocket, and then the recessed zippered closure, I just want to make sure that this is very clear going forward. Your lining piece, as you can see, I've already trimmed off those strips up here. I have chosen to do a recessed zippered closure. If you are choosing to not do a recessed zippered closure and to not add cork strips, to not replace this with your M pieces, when you do any of your measurements for your pockets, you're going to measure from your top edge. So you want to make sure that this trimming is done first. And the reason is, when you put a recessed zippered closure in, let's say that we didn't do any of our trimming. We just left this as is and we haven't trimmed anything yet. Let's say it tells you to place a pocket 3 inches from the top. If you measure from here and down, and then later on trim this, your pockets could be too high and they could impede on your zipper. If you are not doing a zippered closure, you don't have to worry about it. You can just measure from your top edge. I am doing a zippered closure and substituting cork strips. So I cut my strips from here, I'm getting rid of those, and I'm replacing them with the M strips. In between here is where my recessed zipper is going to go. So I need to know that ahead of time and make sure that I've done my trimming because I need to make sure that all of my placements are correct. Some of the pieces we add are going to be quite high. And if you add those before trimming, your zipper will completely get in the way and you'll have to redo everything. And why bother redoing it? So just make your decision right now. Am I adding a recessed zipper? If you are, trim off that strip if you haven't already. Decide if you want to substitute it with cork. You can leave the fabric or substitute it. Or if you decide, no, I don't want a recessed zipper, then you're just going to make all of your measurements from the top edge. Don't trim this at all. This is explained to you in the add-on pattern, and if you've done a recessed zippered closure, this will all make sense, but we just want to make sure that we're not messing up anything for ourselves in the future, and I didn't want to include two different measurements because I knew it was just going to get a little bit too chaotic. So now that we have this done, let's go ahead and move on to some of our lining add-ons. We're going to start with one of the simplest add-ons for your lining, and that's going to be the key fob hook. So I've grabbed a 1/2-inch swivel hook, and I have cut my strip here the same size that the pattern says, which is 1x7. I'm just making a small key fob. This is something that's very easy to adjust. If you want to use a different size swivel because that's what you have, you can absolutely adjust it. It doesn't have to be a 1/2 inch. It could be 1 inch, 3/4, whatever you have on hand. You can also make this piece longer if you want. I made it short so that my keys would be fairly close to the top and easy to grab. If you want to cut this longer, you definitely have some scraps left over. You can also make this out of cotton. That is totally fine. What I would suggest with cotton, and you'll see when we get to finishing this up, is that you cut it double the length because you're going to want to fold it completely in half. With the cork, I'm not going to. Let me grab the finished one. So in this finished bag right here, I'll show you the swivel. I just folded over the end right here, so that's a raw edge. I put a rivet in, but we're gonna sew it today. If you're doing cotton, you wouldn't want a raw edge there, so you'd want to bring this all the way up so that both ends are in the seam. You're just gonna make a little tiny handle. Essentially the same way that you would fold any other cotton handle, you'll fold it in 4s. So if you wanted a 1/2 inch finished, you would end up cutting this piece 2 inches. For cork, we're just cutting it 1. I'm just gonna take this to the machine, fold it in half and get it ready, and then I'm gonna add my swivel hook on. When I fold it in half, I'm just gonna do my 1/8 inch top stitching on either side. So there is my little tiny handle. I just top stitched 1/8 of an inch on each side. I'm gonna take my swivel hook and just put it through here, fold it over, and just add a couple stitches right here. I can leave that raw edge. So I've got my key fob all set, and I grabbed one of my lining pieces. I'm just gonna place it on one side. I don't really think that it matters. If it does to you, you can decide. About 1 inch down, the swivel hook is gonna be facing in, and I'm just going to stitch it about 1/8 of an inch right here, and then this will be all set. So that is how add-on number 5 is looking. My swivel hook is all sewn in and ready to go. I'm gonna set this aside and we're going to work on add-on number 6, which is the inside zippered pocket. For add-on number 6, we're going to make a little zippered hanging pocket. So rather than do the standard zippered pocket that I have done in almost every pattern that I have, which I have a video for, and I'll link that up at the top for you, I decided to do something a little bit different just for fun. I remember many times when I would buy a commercially made bag, like a tote bag, they always had this kind of fun little hanging pocket in it. I don't know why, but it's always kind of stuck with me. So I thought, let's do that. And if this is not the kind of zippered pocket that you want to do, you can add a standard welt type or a buttonhole type of zipper. That is what I do in most of my patterns. Again, I will link a video for you, but you can definitely find that information in many of my other patterns and videos. So let's try something different today. So the first thing that we're going to do is prep our zipper with the little tabs right here. We're also going to cut this piece, this is our J piece, into 3 pieces. So follow along right in your pattern and it's going to give you those sizes. These 2 pieces will be for the front and this will be for the back. So I'm just gonna slide those away for just a minute. I'm gonna take my zipper and my little tabs here, and these are just little squares. I'm gonna grab a couple of clips. I've got my zipper trimmed to the size as indicated in the pattern, and I'm going to take these little tabs and just put them right side down. I'll move my zipper in so it's out of the way of my clip. Just place that right side down on each end. Now this particular pocket is really only made for cork. If you want to make this out of cotton or canvas or anything woven that's going to fray, you will have to make some adjustments that I did not do for you. This is probably the only piece that's not going to be a quick, just cut it a little bit bigger kind of a thing. You would need lining pieces. You would need to finish your edges. So I would highly recommend that you choose something non-fraying for this, or you're going to have to break out the pen and pad and start doing some math. This is the one thing that I just didn't have the chance to get done for you. Maybe in the future, there will be a video for that. So now that I have these pieces in place, these little squares are a little bit taller than the zipper, and they're going to make this a little wider than it needs to be because I wanted to account for seam allowances. Everybody's 1/4 inch is a little bit different. So the first thing I'm going to do is sew a 1/4 inch down each of these edges. I'm going to pull my pieces outward so that they're nice and flat away from my zipper, and I'm going to top stitch. Once that's done, I will probably have to trim to size, and that's totally fine. So I'm going to head to the machine, and then I'll be back and we'll put these pieces together. Okay, so my zipper is all set. I did trim a little bit on this part of the cork as well because it wasn't totally lined up. I had cut these larger than the zipper. I based it on a number 5 zipper. So if you are using a number 3 or just a different style zipper, you might have to trim yours as well. As far as my length, it's actually the same length as my other piece, which is what it needs to be. So I don't have to trim that. If you do, totally fine. I like to add some overage to make sure that you have some wiggle room. So I'm going to take this piece, which is the back, and just kind of scoot that aside. And we're going to start with the front pieces, specifically the top. So we're going to start with the smallest. And really, as we add these, we go small, medium, and large. So we're going to start with the small. I'm going to add a little bit of tape onto the bottom right side. Okay, you can add it onto the zipper if you want. I'm adding it onto the cork. And you can also just do this with clips. I'm going to prep this piece too, and I'm just going to add a piece of tape onto the right side on the top edge, which is a longer edge. Okay, I'm going to take this piece right here, take my tape off, or my paper. I always say that. Take the paper off. We want to use the tape. Okay, and I'm going to place this right sides together with my zipper. So just align that up. Right like that, and push my tape down. Sometimes these stripe zippers are a little bit wiggly. They kind of shift a little from side to side. Plus I have a zipper pull in the way. So I'm just doing the best that I can. Clips are totally fine as well. So I'm going to head to the machine and sew a 1/4 inch all the way across here, making sure that I backstitch. Then I'm going to add this piece the same way. So since I'm going to the machine, I'm just going to do both of my stitches. Just going to add a clip just because it's going to be easier to clip this out of the way for the moment. There we go. I'm going to turn this piece over, move that zipper pull, and I'm going to add this piece on as well. I am just doing this both at the same time because I'm heading to my machine. You can do one piece and then add your next one. So I'm just going to add this one right along this edge. Keep that zipper pull out of the way. I have been getting used to working without zipper pulls on, and I kind of like it better that way. I definitely said at one point that people that did that were crazy. Well, here I am. I'm nuts. So now working with the zipper pull is kind of weird. Okay, so there we go. So let me take these clips out. So I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch across here, a 1/4 inch across here, and then when I'm done, I'll be able to open that up and top stitch. I will do my seams first, and then I'll come over and show you how to top stitch. Before I top stitch, let me show you how this is looking. I sewed my small strip to the front or the top of the zipper, right sides together. I sewed the larger strip, or the medium sized strip, I should say. This is the largest piece, to the bottom. I'm going to press both of these seams away from the zipper like so, and I'm going to top stitch 1/8 inch along each of those edges. Once that's done, we can add on the bottom piece or the back piece, and we'll be all set. My front is all finished, so I've done my top stitching. I pressed away from the zipper. This piece and my back piece should be the same size. My front was actually a little bit longer. Again, because of seam allowances and differences in zippers, it's okay, you can always trim it. So we just want to make sure that these two pieces are the same width and height. I trimmed up my front to make sure that it was. So now what I'm going to do is turn the back over so it's wrong side up, place my front wrong side down. So these are now wrong sides together. I'm going to set those right on top of each other there. I'm going to go ahead and just stitch 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Again, this is why it's not going to work with cotton, because we're not finishing these edges, and behind the zipper we do have some cork raw edges. So this is ready to go. I'm just going to do my stitching right there, and then we can add it into the lining. Before I sew this down to my lining piece, I wanted to just show you, we had talked about this a little bit in the beginning. If I was working on my outside still, what a neat pocket this would be. It fits perfectly under the handles. It's the same width as your other pockets. It would go right into your seam. And on the outside, you could have a slip pocket and a little zippered pocket. So just food for thought for another bag. I really need to make one and put this on the outside, and I keep forgetting. So I guess I have to make another one of these, you know, the horror of having to do that. But if I make another one, I definitely want to try this out. I think it would be super cute. In that case, I could finish my top edge and leave those raw like before, and I could probably add a piece of cotton if I wanted to. My only concern is really just right here. I would end up having a raw edge underneath my zipper, but for a small pocket like that, it's probably not as much of a concern as I'm thinking it would be. So it's really just those edges that would need to be finished if I put it in the lining. If I put it under here, I could just finish my top edge. So I'm just rambling, but I got really excited thinking I should have tried this before I finished the outside, but that's okay. So now that this is done, what I did on my lining, I just grabbed one of my lining pieces. Yes, it happens to be the one that has the swivel hook added in, but it doesn't matter. This swivel hook goes into a seam. It does not make any difference. If you want this in a certain position towards the front or the back, you can decide. For me, I'm just throwing it all in together. So what I did is I just made a little mark with my chalk to find the center here. I made a mark in the center and I measured down as per the pattern. And I'm just going to take a little bit of tape. Tape is my savior for this whole bag, really for any bag, because it's just so much easier than trying to pin or clip in awkward places. Get rid of that. Come on, get off my finger. Or don't. Okay, so I'm just going to use a little bit of tape and get that paper going. Come on. Okay. It gets worse as I go. There we go. Okay. Get that tape out of the way so it's not showing. I'm just making a mess here today. So I'm going to take my center right to the center. It should be placed as per the pattern. This is one of the really important ones that you definitely want to make sure your trimming is done. This is only 1 inch from the top. Our strips, it would definitely kind of hinder this. You would end up having this in the way of the recess zipper. So again, make sure you know what your final plans are before you put this in and make any mistakes that are going to hurt you later. So once I have that in place, I'm just going to stitch right here 1/8 of an inch. That's it. This is going to stay totally loose. Now on YouTube a few weeks ago, or depending on when you're watching this, 2 years ago, I'm not sure, but it was a couple weeks ago for me. One of the things that people had requested was that this be a removable pocket. And I did give it some thought. I'm not saying that I don't listen to what people ask, but I guess my question is, why would I want this to be removable? To me, it's not that big of a pouch. Maybe to you it is. So if you wanted to make this removable, you could just add a snap to each corner. You could add one to the center too. Add the opposing part of the snap to the back here. Just make sure you line everything up. Again, what I would do is make my marks wherever I wanted to snap, punch the hole in here, and then use those holes to make the same marks on the lining. Add half the snap to the front and half to the lining, and I could go ahead and remove this pocket. For me, I'm going to follow the pattern and I'm just going to go ahead and stitch that in place. Once that is done, we're going to start making some divided pockets. Here is how we're looking so far. We have our key fob and our pocket that's kind of just hanging loose. These may or may not be on the same piece of lining for you, and that's totally fine. If you've stuck with me for any time, you've definitely made divided pockets. However, we're going to do this one differently. So this is not going to be the cotton version. If you want to do a pocket out of cotton, I will link a video up here for you from one of my other tutorials that you can watch. For this one, we're going to use a piece of fabric that doesn't fray. This is the water resistant cotton. Sometimes in the other bags, I use waterproof cotton or waterproof canvas, whichever. And because this isn't gonna fray, we're gonna do kind of a cheater technique for our pocket. So with cotton, we have to make sure that we hide all those raw edges, but for this, we don't. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna fold this wrong sides together. And if I'm being totally honest, it's hard to tell which is the wrong and the right side, and I'm not really that particular about it. So again, wrong sides together because I'm not going to turn any tube. I am just going to sew this as is. This is kind of just eliminating a step. And the reason I started doing this is because when you work with waterproof canvas, it has a rubber backing. And one of the ways to make your divided pocket look really nice and neat is to press this seam open. Hard to do when you have to work around rubber. If you touch that with the iron, you're going to melt it and you might ruin your iron. So instead, I folded this wrong sides together because I'm not turning it. And I'm gonna stitch 1/8 of an inch along these raw edges. I'm still making a tube, but I'm not turning the tube. So I'm just gonna kind of flatten this out. The better you do here, the less waves and wrinkles you'll have, because if you're anything like me, no matter how straight you cut, it's not straight. This is my bottom raw edge. It's not gonna fray, so I'm just gonna stitch 1/8 of an inch along there. And for the top folded edge, I'm gonna do the same thing. Then this pocket will be ready to attach to the lining instead of having to turn it, press it, and then top stitch. So this is how my pocket is looking so far. Again, this is a raw edge down here because it really doesn't matter in this case. And this is my folded edge. So I'm gonna put my folded edge towards the top. And I've already made a mark on my piece so that I know where I wanna line it up. And I'm just gonna smooth that out. You see, you still get a little bit of a ripple sometimes unless you are a perfect cutter, which I am not. I try really hard. I think I do a great job. And then I find out later I didn't. Things are a little bit uneven, but that's okay. Perfection is overrated, and I am 100% okay with that. So clip this in just like this. And now I'm going to stitch this. So at the machine, I'm gonna stitch right on top of this 1/8 inch top stitching, and then I'm gonna divide it however I want. I might just do down the middle. I might do kind of 2 or 3 spots. Not really sure. If this was the regular size tote bag, which it was supposed to be, I would recommend doing no less than 3. So at least 2 lines of stitching for 3 pockets. Sometimes just sewing down the middle, you end up with like a big floppy pocket that doesn't really hold anything. So I would definitely recommend doing at least 2 lines of stitching to create 2 pockets. I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then when I'm done, I will trim these edges so that they're even with the lining, and I will also stitch 1/8 of an inch along there. I divided my pocket into 3 pockets, so I did 2 lines of stitching. I think that's pretty sufficient for this size bag. I just picked a random measurement and measured over and just did the same thing on both sides. I've got that all ready. Trim my threads, always leaving a thread behind. So if I don't want to add the recessed zippered closure, I'm actually ready to go ahead and assemble. But since we're going to add the recessed zipper, I'm gonna set this aside and grab those pieces, which are my L pieces, grab my zipper, and we're gonna put that together, and then we'll be ready to put it all together. Add-on number 8 is our recessed zippered closure, and it's going to be the final add-on for our pattern. Once this is complete, we can start assembling the lining and then finish up the bag. So I have my 2 cork strips and my 2 water-resistant cotton strips. Those are going to be for underneath the zipper. These are going to be for the top. If you want to do the cotton version of this, it's not going to be in this video, but I will link another video up here for you that's also mentioned in the pattern. And the sizes are also in the instructions for you. I had to cut mine a little smaller because I made that mistake earlier, but it's totally fine. You're just going to follow the pattern. So now that I have these ready, the first thing I'm going to do is curve the ends of my zipper. What I need to do is curve them away from the zipper pull, as you can see here, because I don't want my pull to come off, and I need to have something where I don't want my pull to come off, and these ends right here that aren't the prettiest, those are going to be covered by cork, and so it will be totally fine. What you can do is sew this. You can use a lighter to burn the edges, or you can use a stapler. There's so many different options. Everyone kind of has a preferred method. What I do is just curve my zipper outwards. I add a pin or a clip, take it to my machine, and just add a few stitches. You just want to make sure that you get enough of a curve, as close to a 90-degree curve as you can get, because we need to cover this up. And if it's not curved enough, it's going to be hard to work with. So once we have this done, I have not trimmed my zipper. It is much longer than it needs to be. And when my bag is completely done, I will go ahead and trim it and put a little zipper end on. For now, I'm just gonna leave it. So the next thing you're gonna do is on the back of all 4 of these pieces, you're going to add your tape. So I've already gone ahead and done that. Again, I'm just going to say it one more time. If you're doing this out of cotton, you need to do this step a little bit differently. So please watch the other video or adapt whatever technique you need to. You definitely don't want to leave raw edges with cotton, because it will look awful after you've used that zipper a few times. These materials don't fray, so we can use them raw edge. So all of the instructions I'm going to give are based on these right here. So what I'm going to do first is I have my zipper laying down. I'm going to take one of my cork pieces, take my paper off, and I'm going to put this on the front, and I want to cover this little curved end. So I'm just going to come, I don't know, maybe about 1/4 of an inch or so past that. Just want to make sure that I'm covering that completely. And I don't want my strip too close to the zipper teeth. I need to make sure that there is enough room to open the pull. If I put it too close, it's going to get in the way of my pull, and then my bag is not going to function. So once I have this cork strip on, I'm going to take my other one, and I just have the tape on one of the long sides. Because I have directional cork, I did pick the top edge of my print, so these will kind of be mirror image of each other. And now I'm going to line up my ends and put it about the same width away as I did the first strip. Just like that. That looks good. So now I'm going to flip this over. And I'm actually going to unzip it because it's a little easier just to work without that pull in my way. I'm going to take my water resistant pieces, and I'm going to put one of these on each side. Let me just get this paper off. Okay. So this is going to be my back. So I'm just putting it tape side down on the wrong side of the zipper, lining up all the edges with the pieces I already have in place. I think these are even easier to put on. Just line this up here and here. All right, looking good. So now I can head over to my sewing machine. I'm going to leave my zipper unzipped just like I have it, and I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch all the way around all 4 edges here and here. So I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch and 1/8 of an inch. I'm doing 2 separate boxes. Once I'm done with that, we're going to start putting our bag together. So we're looking good, getting to the final steps. I have my pieces sewn in. These edges over here on the outside are going to be sewn into a seam, so I'm not concerned that my piece is shifted a little bit. That is totally fine. Everything that's going to be showing looks really good. As far as the length of the zipper, it is not going to stay this long when the bag is finished. I will have a tail, but it's not going to be this long. I'm leaving it this way until the bag is completed. I think that it's easier to sew the entire bag, get it top stitched, have it completely done, and then trim this up and add on a zipper end. If you trim this really short right now, it's going to be a problem when you put your bag together. So now that we have all of our things done, I'm going to grab our lining pieces and the top M pieces for the cork, and we're going to go ahead and start putting this together. In your original instructions, it's going to tell you how to put your lining together, and it's basically the same way that you did for your outside, except you're going to be leaving a large opening in the bottom for turning. We are still going to do that today. That's not going to change, even though we're adding the recess zipper. So in order to put this together with the zipper, I've grabbed that piece right here that I just finished. I also have my 2 M pieces. These are the cork strips that I substituted out for the fabric. So I cut my strips and I threw them away. I'm subbing them for cork, so the entire top will be cork. and I have both of my lining pieces. So I'm gonna start with the lining piece that has a zippered pocket. My only reason for that is that I like when my zippers go in the same direction, so I'm gonna put these going the same way. It's just a thing. I don't really have an explanation for it. I'm gonna grab my clips and I'm gonna move one of these strips out of the way as well. So when you're adding a recessed zipper, I always say up, up, down. And the reason is I have my bottom piece with my pockets right side up. I have my zipper centered, roughly, I just eyeball it, also right side up. And I'm gonna take this last strip right here and put it right side down. So right side up, right side up, right side down. You can find your center if you want to. I am just eyeballing it because it's not that precise to me. I'm gonna add some clips. Now, even though we are working with fabrics and cork that don't tend to stretch, sometimes because this little M strip is skinny, it will stretch a little bit anyhow. So when we're sewing, we're just gonna be really cautious with that. If you have to stitch a little bit, flip it over and stitch from the other side, you can totally do that. Don't think it's weird if you can't stitch from one side to the other in one line. That does not make a difference. So now that this is ready to go, I'm gonna do a 1/4 inch seam from here all the way across to here, catching everything. My little tab for my little key fob is right here. I pushed it down out of the way, and the pocket, because I followed the correct measurements, is not going to be in the way. The pocket is actually down below the zipper. So I'm gonna sew this first seam, and then I'll show you how to use the other two pieces and put them on here, and then we're just about ready to put it all together. Seam number 1 is all set. I sewed through all the layers. My pocket down here was not touched at all. So now that I have that done with my 1/4 inch seam, what I'm going to do is grab this right here. I'm gonna grab my other lining piece. I'm gonna flip this around. And again, I have my bottom right side up. I have my zipper right side up. I'm lining up those edges there. Make sure this is even on each side. And I'm gonna take my last strip, my M, right side down. So up, up, down. Now that I have that in place, add my clips. And I'm gonna go ahead and sew another 1/4 inch seam. So that's how I'm looking right now. There's my zipper. There's my lining pieces, right sides together. This is usually where people get hung up because as they're going, they think that this is incorrect because it's facing away from the lining. But just remember, that's how it's going to look when it sits in your bag. So it is correct. I'm gonna sew my 1/4 inch seam. We'll talk about how to finish this up, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get my bag completed. All right, so let's take one final look at this before we go ahead and finish everything up. Here is how it's looking. If I open up my lining, I'm gonna see the wrong side of the zipper, which is correct. From this side, from the back side, I'm seeing the correct side of the zipper. So that is all good. You're going to follow steps 7 and 8 in your Taurus tote bag pattern to do your finishing steps. The only thing that I wanted to note for you, everything is going to be the same. You'll still leave an opening in the lining. The only thing that you'll have to do differently is when you're getting your sides put together, make sure that these top strips, whether they are cork or fabric, are open and facing up. You don't want to tuck these down. So when I clip this, I'm going to clip it together, nesting my seams, one facing up and one facing down, just like that. And I want my cork right sides together. If I tuck those down, it's not going to go together properly. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a few more clips here. Do the same thing over here. I'm just gonna tuck that zipper tail out of the way. I will take care of that when the bag is done. So I don't want that caught in a seam. This little piece right here for my key fob, I do want caught. And again, what I'm gonna do is nest those seams. Cork is right sides together. Lining pieces are right sides together. If you've done 2 divided pockets, ideally they should be lining up on the side. If they don't tell anybody, it's okay. I'm gonna get all these edges lined up. I'm gonna head over to the machine and I'm gonna finish my lining, and then I'm going to finish my bag up and I'll be back to show you how it looks. Let's take a look at the finished bag. First note, if I was going to make this 2 inches narrower on purpose, I definitely wouldn't have cut the corners the same size as the pattern. Probably would have taken about 1 inch off of those or so. I love how it came out. I'm happy with everything. It is a little skinny on the bottom, but you know what? We make mistakes and we have to live with them. And I'm totally fine with it. I will carry this bag and I just won't tell anybody that that's what happened. So this is our secret. Don't tell, okay? So now that the bag is done, a couple of things just to talk about as far as the finishing construction. You're going to follow steps 7 and 8 in your pattern. You're going to leave the opening in the lining. You're going to finish both of these and do exactly as the pattern says. The only thing that I want you to keep in mind is that as you're sewing around, make sure that your zipper is again out of the way. You're not sewing through this, and that these strips on the top are facing up. They need to be right sides together. Your seams right here can get a little bit thick if you're using cork, and you want to just be cautious with any hardware that it doesn't get in your way as you're sewing. Once I finished this, I turned it, I closed my lining, and then I went ahead and trimmed up my zipper. That's how short I left my zipper now that my bag is done. Much easier to do at the very end. I added a little zipper tab right there. I've got my pockets in here. I put my zippered pocket towards the back. I kind of call this the front because it has the handmade tag. I've got my divided pockets in the front. Everything looks great. I'm super pleased with this. I hope that you're enjoying making a new and improved version of the Taurus tote bag. If you have questions for me or need anything, don't forget that you can find everything on my website and you can send me an email if anything is not clear. If you like videos like this, don't forget to click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for joining me. Okay, a little recap on the water-resistant lining. Yes, I do like it. It worked really nicely. The structure is good, but it's not quite the same as the waterproof canvas. I still like it and would definitely use it for a smaller bag. I think for a larger bag, I would still rather have the waterproof because it's a little heavier. So it is fine. It is fine without interfacing. I would say it's probably about 85 to 90% making me happy structure. Like I can feel that this is a little bit squishy. For a bag like this one that doesn't have the zippered pocket and the extra stuff going on up here, I probably would not like it. So I love the water resistant canvas. I will use it in smaller projects. Definitely not something for a tote bag unless I interface it next time.